I do get a lot of backlash. I get called a lot of names because I talk about sex openly. Yeah, I get called every name under the sun. I get called a slut, a hoe.
So, welcome to POC Stories. Today, I'm welcoming Catherine. She's a feminist in Cambodia, and we're going to talk about feminism in Cambodia. How is it to be a feminist in Cambodia?
My name is Catherine, and yeah, I'm from Cambodia. I am a feminist, and I have a vlog called A Dose of Cath. So, in my vlog, I talk about feminist issues, I talk about gender, I talk about sexual reproductive health, sex education, and I also talk about societal issues and cultural perspective from a feminist point of view.
Okay. And so, how did you start your blog and why?
I started so the vlog actually started as a blog. So I was writing a blog when I was 18 at the time. I was working in an NGO, and one of the topics that we were working on, one of the projects was about sexual reproductive health. And in doing that, I realized that sexual reproductive health, sex education is a topic that many people don't talk about. And because of that, I feel like it's very important, but people just seem to not talk about it because it's a taboo. So I started writing a blog, A Dose of Calf, to express my opinions on it, to share my information on it. And as I start learning about sex education, about sex in general, I started going into feminism because sexual reproductive health is a very important part of feminism. And I started reflecting back on my life, thinking that I have been oppressed all my life. I've been spoon fed patriarchy and misogyny, and yet I never seemed to realize that it was misogyny. I seemed to be conditioned into thinking that that was the norm. So I got really angry. And then I started doing a lot of content. And in 2017, I started making videos about it, talking about all these topics. And it just grew bigger than I thought it would. And well, yeah, 4 years later, here I am still making weekly videos on feminist topics and sex.
Okay. And so, what are the main feminist issues in Cambodia?
Oh, there are so many feminist issues in Cambodia, as I suspect there are in every other part of the world. We are a patriarchal country, thanks largely to colonialism. We Sexism is very prevalent in Cambodia. We have a code of conduct, women's code of conduct that was written by a king, basically detailing what women should or shouldn't do to be considered as a good woman. So things like you should wake up before your husband, you should go to sleep after your husband, you should be a wife, a mother, a servant. So things like that that people still hold dear. They protect it, thinking that it's part of culture. So every time that someone says something critical about it, people defend it, saying that you cannot take away culture, associating misogyny with culture for some reason. And the Women's Code of Conduct was taught in school up until 2007, 2008, around that time. So children were brought up thinking that this is the norm, being told to recite the poem, the Women's Code of Conduct. And there are still so many other issues out there. Sexual violence is a very big issue. In 2014, there was a report saying that 1 in 5 men in Cambodia has sexually assaulted a woman at one point in their lives. 1 in 5 is an astounding number. So we have all of these issues. Women are oppressed and confined by culture, tradition, shamed. It's a very patriarchal country.
Okay. And so, how did you don't you feel, do you have like the support of your relatives, for example? Because I when I was doing my research, I just heard about you, about the infamous Cambodia. I didn't hear about anyone else. I don't know if the feminist scene is very widespread in the Cambodia or it's just starting or
I think the feminist scene in Cambodia is just starting because, so back when I was young, there was never any mentioning of the word feminist. We didn't know what it was. I had never even heard about it. It's only until recently that young people, the younger generations with access to social media and the internet, started learning about feminism and identifying themselves as feminists. But it's still very new in Cambodia because of that, what I believe in, the stance that I hold, a lot of people think that I'm very radical, I'm very extreme. I've been called by friends that I'm extreme. I think it's because people still misunderstand what feminism is or don't fully understand what it actually entails. I think the younger generation are really getting better at this. They're speaking up about it. But I also understand that I come from a privileged background because I'm financially independent, I'm educated, and because of that, I am able to speak up without having as many repercussions as there would be for someone who is not financially independent or who is not highly educated, because then they would have to depend on their family. And if they speak up against something that is part of structure, societal structure, they might be kicked out of the family, they might be disowned. So I also understand my privilege in being able to do what I do. That's why I try to help other women so that they too can have a voice as well.
Okay. And do you do workshop or do you go to schools or?
I do go to schools from time to time. I do workshops. Yes, I get invited to workshops and trainings to talk about gender, to talk about feminism. Sometimes organizations would invite me to train their staff, especially organizations that are working on gender issues, so that their staff can get a better understanding, a better grasp of what feminism is and how to be gender sensitive.
Okay. And do you feel like women start to understand the importance of feminisms, or they feel like it's something brought to from Western countries, or?
I think the younger generation definitely are beginning to understand and realize the importance of feminism. But still, in Cambodia, feminism is something that people look at as being like a Western thing, even though Cambodia was actually a matriarchal country before colonialism. I think yeah, many people do look at it like that. Many people have accused me of being too westernized because of what I believe in. There have been men, foreign men, a lot of them are white men coming into Cambodia, and they see what I do. And they start saying that I have been brainwashed by women in the Western countries, and women like me, like an Asian woman, shouldn't be talking about all these things against my culture, even though they're white in a foreign country and they don't even know what my culture is. So yeah, I experience things like that a lot.
But do people are aware about the matriarchal society that Cambodia used to be? Because, for example, me, I'm coming from Senegal, and it's really
Mhm.
hard to say to people, like to make people to understand that it used to be like a matriarchal society, and feminism is part of our culture, actually. So,
Mhm. The problem is, a lot of people mistakenly think that we are still a matriarchal country because, for example, our language, the words that we use, like for a leader in position of power. So if we call leader, if we call chief, things like that, we have the word may, which is translated to female. So when we say a leader, we have the word female in front of it. So people use that argument saying that no, Cambodia is not a patriarchal country because our language is like this, not taking into consideration that it has changed, the landscape has changed, that the country is no longer matriarchal. So I think the problem is that they're using all of these signs of Cambodia's past being matriarchal as a sign to stop feminism by saying that we don't need feminism anymore because it has always been matriarchal, which it's not anymore.
I really like your YouTube channel. It's very like educative and super funny. And what was like the most controversial video?
Oh, I have quite a number of very controversial videos. One of those was about the earlier ones was about virginity, talking about why society values virginity and why it should not matter. That was the first very controversial video I did. The other one was about the Women's Code of Conduct. So I did about how the Women's Code of Conduct is misogynistic, and I have a lot of people, especially men, talking about how no, the Women's Code of Conduct is actually there so that women can become better people. People have even made 10, 15-minute videos in response to that. Others would be about sex education, like about masturbation, about oral sex. And I do get a lot of backlash. I get called a lot of names because I talk about sex openly.
Okay. And so what kind of critiques do you really like get?
So I get called every name under the sun. I get called a slut, a hoe. I have been accused of bestiality because I take photos with my dogs and I talk about sex. Somehow they think that I'm into bestiality. They have called me racist terms. One person said that, and this is in relation to how feminism is like a Western woman thing. One person said that I'm the type of woman that white men love to have sex with because I'm like this. Um, yeah, I do get a lot of those. I get called everything basically. And also rape threat and a threat of lashing, like using like whipping as well. So I get those two.
Okay. So is it risky to advocate about feminism in Cambodia?
I think it's not as risky as it would be in some other countries, in some other parts of the world, because even though there is threat of violence, so far it hasn't manifested into like real world or I mean, as with most women out there, I do feel unsafe when I go out, and it's not just because I'm a feminist, it's because I'm a woman. But I haven't exactly felt fear for my life because of what I do as of yet. But I think it's dangerous, especially online, because of the harassment. But it's not as dangerous as some parts of the world. Yeah.
Because I've read like some terms doesn't exist in Cambodian languages. So
Mhm.
how can you explain, for example, about affirmative consent?
I try to translate it, and then I try to translate it in a way that is explanatory. So, for example, affirmative consent, I would explain what it means and what it's called in English. So it's a bit more lengthy than it would be if we're talking about it in English. But I think it's things that people should understand, and because it's so new, it has to be explained in details. Even things like the word feminist, the translation of the word feminist for me is not accurate. It's roughly translated to bias towards women, which puts a lot of people off because when they hear that, they think it's like, oh, you're just siding with women. But it's not like that. Feminism is for everyone. It's about giving everyone equal say in everything. It's not about putting women in position of power and making men be subordinate to that. It's about power for everyone. So because of the mistranslations like that, it causes a lot of misunderstanding.
Okay. And is there anything else you would like to say?
I think for me, I really like how feminism, the third wave feminist movement is going because I have been greatly inspired by the second wave feminist movement, but we have to also see the fact that the second wave was very white, very middle class, very heterosexual, and we can see that right now things have changed in the third wave feminist movement. There's a lot of inclusivity. We have become intersectional, And I think that largely because of that, I am able to be a feminist and to speak up about these issues because now it's like a global movement. It's not just me, but it's you, it's everyone out there that are fighting for the same cause while also taking into consideration our differences. And I really like how things are going. And I hope that we keep the momentum going.